Simple Tales presents Amaterasu and the Cave, a Japanese myth. Have you ever wondered how a single wounded heart can leave an entire world in darkness? Many believe that strength means never retreating. Others hide their pain so deeply that no one notices until hope itself begins to fade. But the ancient storytellers of Japan believed that even the brightest light sometimes needs kindness to shine again. This is the story of Amaterasu and the Cave. Long ago, when heaven and earth were still young, the radiant sun goddess Amaterasu ruled the high plane of heaven. Each morning, she crossed the sky in a chariot of light. Wherever her golden rays touched, rice ripened, cherry blossoms opened, rivers sparkled, children laughed beneath clear blue skies. The gods honored her not because she was the most powerful. They honored her because she gave warmth to every living thing without asking for praise. Among the heavenly gods lived her younger brother, Susanoo, lord of storms and the restless sea. He was fierce where Amaterasu was gentle, wild where she was patient. His heart was not evil. It was simply ruled by anger before wisdom. At first, his temper caused little harm. He frightened birds with roaring winds. He sent waves crashing higher than they should. The other gods sighed and carried on. But as the years passed, his anger grew harder to control. He flattened her rice fields with storms. He destroyed the irrigation channels that carried water to the crops. Still, Amaterasu forgave him. "He is my brother," she said quietly. "He will learn." But Susanoo did not. Then came the day that changed heaven itself. Amaterasu was quietly weaving sacred robes for the gods inside her heavenly weaving hall. The room was peaceful. Golden threads shimmered in the sunlight. Outside, the birds sang. Without warning, the roof burst open. Susanoo had thrown a dead horse into the hall as a cruel prank. The terrified weaving maidens screamed. Their work was destroyed. The hall fell into chaos. Amaterasu stood frozen. It was not only the destruction that wounded her. It was the realization that someone she loved had chosen cruelty over kindness. Without speaking a single word, she turned away. She walked across the heavenly fields, past the rivers, past the sacred trees. At the edge of heaven stood a great stone cave. Amaterasu stepped inside. Then she rolled an enormous boulder across its entrance. The light of the sun disappeared. Darkness spread across the world. The skies turned gray. The rice stopped growing. Flowers closed their petals. Birds forgot their morning songs. Even the stars seemed dimmer than before. Cold winds wandered across the earth. People lit fires at noon. Children asked why morning never came. The gods gathered in anxious silence. Without Amaterasu, the balance of the world was breaking. Many offered simple solutions. Break open the cave. Order her to return. Punish Susanoo more severely. But the wisest among them shook their heads. A heart closed by sorrow cannot be forced open. Among the assembled gods stood the joyful goddess Ame no Uzume. She listened quietly to every suggestion. Then a smile slowly appeared upon her face. If darkness entered through sadness, then perhaps light can return through joy. The other gods looked at her in surprise. She asked them to gather everything beautiful they could find. Bright jewels, polished bronze, fresh green branches, flowers untouched by frost. Together they hung shining jewels upon the branches of a sacred sakaki tree. They polished a great bronze mirror until it reflected even the faintest light. Then, Ameno. Uzume climbed onto an overturned wooden tub before the mouth of the cave. She began to dance. At first, her movements were graceful, then playful, then delightfully ridiculous. She laughed, she clapped, she spun so wildly that even the solemn gods could not help smiling. Soon, the heavens echoed with laughter. The sound rolled across the silent world. Inside the cave, Amaterasu frowned. How can they laugh, she wondered, while the world remains in darkness? Unable to resist her curiosity, she slowly moved the great stone aside, just enough to look outside. At that very moment, the mirror caught her reflection. For an instant, she believed another radiant goddess stood before the cave, more beautiful than anyone she had ever seen. She stepped forward in wonder. As she did, brilliant sunlight spilled through the opening. The waiting gods gently pulled the stone completely aside. Light flooded across heaven and earth once more. The rivers sparkled. Birds burst into joyful song. Flowers opened as though waking from a long sleep. Children laughed beneath the returning sun. The world breathed again. Amaterasu looked at the mirror once more. Then she understood. The beautiful goddess she had seen was herself. Not proud, not distant, simply the light the world had been missing. The gods welcomed her home with quiet gratitude. No one celebrated another's defeat. They celebrated the return of hope. As for Susanoo, he stood apart with lowered eyes. For the first time, he truly saw what his anger had done. The darkness had not punished only his sister. It had touched every living thing. Ashamed, he bowed deeply before Amaterasu. I cannot erase what I have done. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she answered, No, but you can choose what you become next. From that day onward, Susanoo began the long work of earning back the trust he had broken. His courage remained, but slowly, wisdom began to guide it. The old storytellers of Japan never claimed that even the sun never knows sorrow. They believed something far gentler. The brightest hearts sometimes withdraw when they have been deeply hurt. They do not always need force to return. Sometimes they need laughter. Sometimes they need understanding. Sometimes they simply need to be reminded of the light they already carry within themselves. Thank you for listening to Simple Tales. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more timeless tales from around the world. Until next time, may your light never be hidden for long, and may your kindness help others find their way back into the sun.